It's Half-Life's birthday! As of November 19th, 2022, this game is 24 years old. Or I'm a week and a half late if you listen to Steam, but they're wrong. For the occasion, I reached out to a few other creators here on YouTube and elsewhere to share some memories with the series and Valve's games in general. I put a few stories of my own at the end too. It's a good chance to celebrate the game's history and point you all in the direction of some fantastic people. Seriously, check out all of these guys in the description below. If you enjoy my stuff even a little bit, you're bound to love theirs. First up is RichterOvertime, whose content spans across pretty much everything to do with the Source engine.
Half-Life is obviously a fantastic and iconic series, but I really think that Half-Life 2 in particular is one of the most culturally significant video games of all time. Even if it weren't a great single-player experience that set an amazing precedent for how to handle video game environment design and make a world feel atmospheric and lived in, the value that Half-Life 2 has provided to the world, just by virtue of birthing Steam, the Source engine, and its extensive web of games and culture, is hard to overstate. Yes, Half-Life 2 is just a single game, but it also is the heart and root of the Source engine macrocosm, which is one of the greatest internet phenomena ever. If not for Half-Life 2's launch and triumph in spite of its troubled development cycle, Valve would have gone bankrupt and fell apart, and we would have never gotten exemplary titles like Garry's Mod or Team Fortress 2. Look, we can sit and argue all day about whether Half-Life 2 was as influential to the games industry on the level of structure, weapon, and level design as its predecessor was. But on a cultural level, a very narrow few games have perpetuated themselves through online culture and touched millions of people on an intimate level in the way Half-Life 2 has. There's really nothing else like it.
Next is Defenestrum, creator of some of the best video essays I've seen on this site.
All the way back in 2009, I moved to the US with my mom, and one of the first things we got was this really basic Windows laptop. Now, even for its time, it wasn't all that fast, but that wasn't gonna stop me from trying to play games on it. It's funny to think back on it, but back then, my 11-year-old brain very quickly realized that if a game had really old and blocky-looking graphics, then they would run smoothly, but anything newer would turn into a slideshow. So this basically funneled me down into playing a lot of stuff like Doom and Quake and later on Half-Life. Mainly because they were really fun, but also because it was really easy for an 11-year-old to pirate. You just download a couple files and you run an executable and you pray to God that the antivirus wasn't gonna scream at you. I'm embarrassed to admit it now, but Half-Life Source actually ended up being my first time playing anything in the series. But this was back when Half-Life Source was still a functional and enjoyable product and not the running joke that it is today. There's a lot of things that I remember really standing out to me, like the fact that the game didn't have any cutscenes, but it still wanted to tell me a story, or how I wasn't getting bored or burnt out from playing the game for really long sessions because it wasn't all just constant fighting and combat, and the levels were so much more intuitive and better paced compared to Doom and Quake. Now, granted, I didn't understand any of that at the time, but I could definitely tell that I was having more fun. And I got hooked. Like, I remember as soon as I finished it, I immediately pirated Half-Life 2 and then the episodes after that just to see what else there was. I remember I would go to school and I would talk to my friends about it and convince them to try and play it as well. It was also the first time that I found myself scouring through fan sites and wikis and YouTube videos to try and better understand the story and the lore. And there was this old machinima series called All Your History or Belong to Us that introduced me to the story of Valve and the history of how the franchise had been made. Half-Life ended up having a pretty profound impact on my life, not just in shaping the tastes for what kinds of games I like, but also in making me more curious about their technology and their design and their developers. The fact that now, all these years later, when I'm an adult man in his mid-20s, the franchise still has a special place in my heart and it still manages to stay relevant to my life, well, that's really something worth celebrating.
Next up, we have indigodotradio, whose content focuses in on a lot of niche topics like Companion Cube lore, the pre-Source Team Fortress community, and the Source engine as a whole.
Half-Life 1 is meaningful to me because it signifies the beginning of an era. Next to the fact that it's an amazing game, of course. However, I didn't exist when it released, so I had to play it after the fact. I spent a lot of time in Half-Life 1 deathmatch as well as exploring zany custom maps. The game really resonated with me because of the community creation, just like any other Valve title. Something I feel Half-Life 1 has an advantage in over Half-Life 2 is the expansion packs. Blue Shift, Opposing Force, as well as Half-Life Decay even, really helped build the universe and the story, and create a strong foundation for the story we call Half-Life. The multiplayer is something I personally cherish a lot more than the single player. The arsenal of weapons worked really well and the stock maps were also very well designed. However, I believe that for this community as a whole, speaking of course in terms of everyone in the Valve community or Source community, we all have a lot to be thankful for with the release of Half-Life 1, and especially with Valve's policy on modding the game. Counter-Strike got its start on Half-Life 1, as well as Team Fortress becoming its own IP rather than just the Quake mod being ported to the Gold Source engine. Gold Source engine really helped make strides in accessibility for talented people, and I like to think that it gave many people a start in their careers. And that's why I think Half-Life 1 is extremely important to not just the Valve community, the Source community, but to the gaming community as a whole.
Fourth is ElephantsDoingCrack, who beat me to the punch on long-form analysis videos of Gunman Chronicles, Half-Life's demos, and Quake.
So, I've had a long history with Half-Life, and I'm talking like 2002 or 2003 levels of long. For context, I was born in 2001, and the first time I played Half-Life was actually from my mom. She showed me how to play the game, well, according to her anyways. I would tell you more about that, but I was like an infant, and I don't remember anything from those days, so I'm gonna take a wild guess and say I wasn't very good at the game. But if you want to go even further back than that, my dad actually played Half-Life for the first time back in 1999 when he was stationed in South Korea when he was still in the Air Force. Everyone at this military base would play Half-Life multiplayer in like this military bunker, and they would have like these rows of computers and these giant LAN parties. They even had a little tournament at one point for whoever was the last person standing would win a special prize. The special prize was that the winner had to eat raw meat in front of everyone because he was the winner, he was the butcher, and apparently, he threw up everywhere. Now as for me, fuck man, I don't even know what to say. I've made a lot of great memories over the years, and I've played a lot of great and bad mods, and I've met a lot of people along the way. Some of them are just casual players, and others are like people who I've like admired and watched for like years. And to think I'm like just casually talking with them is like insane. Like I sometimes can't believe where I am right now. It's almost unreal. My past self would have been like freaking out right now, but you know, that's just how it is. And honestly, I owe everything to Half-Life. Without it, I don't know who I would be. Half-Life changed my fucking life. I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's true, and I'm gonna continue to play this game until I die. In fact, I know you guys can't see it, but I am actually holding my big box copy of Half-Life 1 Game of the Year edition right now.
Up next is Liam, frequent co-writer of my Cascade series. He helps out with the feel of the scripts a lot, catches mistakes, and raises some good points on topics that help improve my analysis.
There's not really one single moment from Half-Life that made me interested in the series, but there is one that I discovered a little bit later that kept me coming back, and it's probably one of the reasons why, in a way, I'm still here with the fandom. It's in Water Hazard, towards the end. There's like a fork in the road, and if you go on the right, there's a small courtyard, there's some zombies and some supplies and not really much else. But every time I go there, I stop for a few minutes. And the main reason is the atmosphere. The sun is setting, there's the wind chimes blowing, and absolutely nothing else. It's a very serene and calm place. And it's a bit weird in the context of Half-Life 2, because this is a game where humanity has been enslaved by this unspeakable, all-powerful, evil empire. You don't know what the Combine looks like, and you don't even know what they want from humanity. It's very depressing and ominous in a way, but it never comes off as grimdark. It never comes off as trying too hard or being depressing for the sake of being depressing, you know? Just trying to be shocking for the sake of being shocking. It never comes off that way because there's always something to counterbalance it, like humor. Half-Life 2 is the game where a terrible evil empire is enslaving humanity. It's also the game where when you kill an enemy, they turn into a funny ragdoll and they roll down the stairs in a funny way. And there's also moments like these that very simply and quietly communicate that there's still hope in a way. I think this is what makes Half-Life unique.
Next we have Wolfclock, an expert in pre-release content. Check out his Betafied series.
Hello, I'm Wolfclock. So Half-Life 2 was not my first computer game and not even my first, Valve experience. That would actually go to Portal. I recall specifically having a memory of one of my brother's friends came over and showed him a video of a Portal speedrun. I believe this was back in 2011. It might have even been earlier. But the first game from Valve I actually played was TF2, followed by Portal a couple of months later maybe. It might have even been earlier than that. But Half-Life and Half-Life 2, those came in for me a little bit later. I think it was maybe a couple of months after Portal and TF2. But they do very much hold a deep place in my heart because actually one of my first experiences with doing 3D modeling came from Half-Life 2 and trying to mod for it. In fact, I remember what it was. I was attempting to create a couple of custom models for my Half-Life 2 mod. I didn't really get anywhere with that, but fast forward a couple of years and now I'm doing 3D modeling professionally. So, Half-Life 2 is partly to thank for that. A lot of the earlier work that I had with 3D modeling actually came from trying to remake things for the beta project, the Half-Life 2 Project Beta, which is a community dedicated to fixing up and recreating old and missing assets from the Worldcraft map pack. I believe I did a couple of different things earlier on. I did stuff like a pipe model that was going to be on the Borealis that disappeared from the game's files, amongst other things. And those are definitely some of the earlier pieces that I worked on. But they definitely helped me out with my ability to create 3D models. And nowadays I do 3D modeling for lots of game projects that I'm on. I'm actually in a game project right now that I'm doing 3D models for, and in between those I'm still making mods for Half-Life 2, so just sort of goes to show my relation between those things. Half-Life and Half-Life 2 are probably one of my earlier sources for speedrunning. Now, I'm not a great speedrunner, obviously, but a lot of that stuff that I can do, stuff like accelerate backwards hop and whatnot, I sometimes just do casually for the hell of it because I think it's a fun experience. Just going really fast through the coast and even just rushing through Black Mesa in Half-Life 1. Lots of fun, definitely. I'm actually, as far as I can tell, the world record holder for speedrunning the Half-Life 2 beta campaign, of all things. Which is pretty funny, come to think of it. There was this other guy. It was a Russian YouTuber who I could barely get translation out of, but he had actually done a couple of tricks while speedrunning the beta himself that I incorporate into my run. My current world record for the Half-Life 2 beta is 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 40 seconds. So that gives you an idea of what's going on in that realm. I will say, as a game designer, Half-Life and Half-Life 2 and Portal, all the different stuff that Valve has released, has been not only a great inspiration, but also excellent practice when it comes to designing things. Obviously, even to this day, the Source engine holds up in terms of being user-friendly and being able to create stuff for. As with most people, I started on a Half-Life 2 mod way back when I was in high school, actually, maybe even earlier. And the Half-Life 2 mod, I still haven't finished it after all these years, but it was a fun experience, a very good learning experience, in fact. Got me out into the community, got me to meet people, got me to learn the basics of things, such as how to tell a story, how to design levels that don't really suck, per se. A little bit of programming, all those different sorts of things. Very interesting experiences, anyway.
Now here's Magic Nipples, a Gold Source wizard behind several unreleased beta mods, very entertaining live streams, and Year of the Dragon, the one that puts Spyro in Half-Life, and this little video that I think about every single day because I want it so bad.
I remember discovering Half-Life through a YouTube video during its early years. I'd already played through games like Doom and Quake, so when I finally gave Half-Life a shot, I was pretty much hooked from the start. How the game is set up where it takes place at a facility that seemed somewhat real, along with things like non-intrusive cutscenes, fast gunplay, and the fact the protagonist doesn't talk at all, is something I can really appreciate. The sequels to Half-Life never really captured me the same way as the original, but based on the community surrounding them, I imagine they're just fine as well for similar reasons. Speaking of community, that's what the games mean to me. The community is pretty much what's keeping these games alive at this point, and there doesn't seem to be any signs of it slowing down. Modding is a big aspect of the community to me, as someone who's worked on several mods at this point. Also to mention, this series has never had its full source code released, unlike the games of the past such as Doom and Quake. And yet it's had a massive modding community for the past 20 plus years, despite that and Valve themselves pretty much becoming extinct when it comes to communication with the modders and the rest of the community. I'm not sure how long things will keep going at this pace, but it feels like we could all be long gone and there will still be someone modding and playing this game.
And finally, there's me. I think the best memories I have with this series is the time I spent playing it with my dad when I was way too young. He introduced me to PC games in general, and while most of that first playthrough drawn out over a few weeks or lost to time, I remember being very annoyed with residue processing, needing a lot of help on that cliff map, and doing everything but that last grenade toss myself when fighting Nihilith. Then we played deathmatch mode together and he absolutely wiped the floor with me, laughing the whole time for reasons I couldn't understand until I did the same with my brother.
Have a shotgun duel in that area, okay? Let's just have a shotgun duel. Okay. So you just wait there with your shotgun, I'll go find a shotgun and come. Okay? Shotgun duel. I didn't. No, that's not fair. We're not using shotgun. I'm still finding the shotgun. Okay, I found a shotgun. I should come over. On one, we start shooting each other, okay? Fair, you got me down to 30 health. Little... Two.
Oh, also, I used to spend minutes on end just hitting this one invincible scientist on the ground with the crowbar, trying to see how much room I could cover with this endless supply of blood. He showed me the expansions as well, and I spent like 5 times longer than you're supposed to on the boot camp because of this one awful rope jump. It's still hard over 13 years later. At one point we went to this computer store in town, and I remember hoping that there'd be more Half-Life games to play, and my dad, who didn't really focus in on gaming news or anything like that, told me that it was unlikely. But lo and behold, there was the Half-Life 2 episode pack sitting there on the shelf. Episode 1 and 2 in a single package. I couldn't wait to return to Black Mesa in a brand new game. Then we get home, figure out how to set up a Steam account because Valve had to be obnoxious to push this platform back in the day, and we finally loaded up Half-Life 2 Episode 1. What? Who's that?
It's really coming apart.
Man, the facility is looking pretty rough these days. Yeah, needless to say, this was extremely confusing. I don't think I even knew about Half-Life 2 itself until quite a bit later. Like, Jesus Christ, not even the back of the box mentions that Episode 1 is a sequel to Half-Life 2 and not just the first part. We played on anyway, and eventually finished the game before moving on to Episode 1. My dad tried to get that Gnome achievement, and I remember trying my best to sabotage him without realizing that he could just load up an old save if it got lost. Oh, then we played Half-Life 2 Deathmatch and he crushed me again, but it was even more infuriating because all he needed was a sink or a toilet to kill me. I have a lot more stories, of course, like watching Freeman's Mind on the old Machinima channel and eventually discovering Gary's mod on the HD pack, but I've realized this is a very exploitable video format, so you'll just have to wait until next year for those. Oh wait, did ratlobber send me a thing too? Fuck. Oh fuck. Oh fuck, I didn't actually... Oh no, I didn't actually... What? Oh fuck. Well, here's ratlobber's stuff, I guess.
Half-Life, I know, a lot of people have memories of Half-Life, but I think probably mine were the earliest and most impactful. I remember I was at the Goodwill one day, and they had the 3-box. I think it was the Adrenaline pack of Half-Life 1 and Blue Shift and Opposing Force. And it might have came with something else that's like irrelevant, but I don't really remember. But I remember getting Blue Shift on my compact desktop computer because I really wanted to play as the cop, and I wanted to shoot people as a security guard. And I remember playing through it, and I was like, wow, this is groundbreaking stuff here, right? This is clearly genius. But then I looked at the box art, and I realized that as I got more into the series of HL, through Blue Shift and Opposing Force and HL1 and Half-Life 2, I realized that all the box art featured, weaponry and some sort of violent machine. And it made me realize that these games were toxic and evil. So that was the time I started playing Overwatch instead. And man, let me tell you about Overwatch. Good lord, what a game they've created with Overwatch. You got Bastion. He's like a little monkey that hops around. Widowmaker. You got Doc, heals the team when needed, and that's what I kind of realized. This world is so violent. Can't be playing these games. You know what I mean? You have to gotta play Roblox and stuff. Yeah. Peace.
Thank you very much for watching. Let me know about some of your own Half-Life memories in the comments or my Discord server down in the description. Here's to another year of this awesome franchise, and as always,
I will see you up ahead.